Mark Caro, and welcome to episode 36 of Caropop. This is part 2 of our conversation with Gerald Casale, co-founder and co-leader of the band Devo. We conducted part 1 the morning after Devo played a concert in New York City and resumed the conversation that afternoon. In part 1, we dug into the making of those first 4 Devo albums, from Are We Not Men through New Traditionalists, and how Casale worked with fellow leader and frontman Mark Mothersbaugh, as well as producers Brian Eno and Ken Scott. Casale related frustrations with Mothersbaugh, saying that trying to get him to agree to perform Devo shows now is like pulling teeth. Casale said he single-handedly keeps the spirit of Devo alive, and he lamented the tribalism, as he called it, that crept into the relationships between the band's 2 sets of brothers, Gerald and the late Bob Casale, and Mark and Bob Mothersbaugh. We left off discussing our ominous cultural landscape and the ways artists might respond. We pick up in part 2, going deeper and darker on that topic. People used to think music could change the world. Do we still hold that belief, or are we just fooling ourselves as we head toward the abyss? How badly have we devolved, and what can we do? Gerald Casale has some thoughts. We also return to our breakdown of Devo's albums, starting with the 5th one, Oh No, It's Devo. It's lively, with songs such as Peekaboo, That's Good, and the Casale song Big Mess popping out of the speakers with evil clown energy. How did Roy Thomas Baker, who worked with Queen and the Cars, come to produce that album? Dark clouds were building as the band grew more reliant on synths. The tension between sounding human and machine-like was evident on the next album, Shout, the band's last for Warner Brothers for 26 years. What went wrong there, and what caused the band to pack it in a couple of albums later? Mark Mothersbaugh focused on writing music for television, such as Pee-wee's Playhouse and Rugrats, plus films including Wes Anderson's Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. What does Casale think of Mothersbaugh's scoring work? Casale, who made many of Devo's videos, directed videos for The Cars, Rush, and Foo Fighters, and he worked for the British team of Godley and Creme, formerly of 10cc. How did those experiences go? Casale formed a side project called Jihad Jerry and the Evildoers, which featured Devo guest appearances. An album, Mine Is Not a Holy War, was released on iTunes in 2006 and on Record Store Day this year in April with the addition of a new track, I'm Gonna Pay You Back. But the real Devo reunion album came with 2010's Something for Everybody, which updated vintage Devo energy with such songs as Don't Shoot, I'm a Man, Fresh, and What We Do. Can we expect another Devo album sometime? You'll have to hear what Casale has to say. Meanwhile, can they interest you in some Devo NFTs? Also, are there any old Devo songs that they now get flack for performing? Please enjoy part 2 of this Caropop conversation with Gerald Casale. The philosophy of devolution is there's something sort of inherently pessimistic about it. Did you imagine we'd still be where we are?
No, we didn't. We thought we were just being kind of, taking a pose, being like smart ass, intellectual guys, canaries in the coal mine, warning people so that it didn't happen. We never thought that when you read things like Animal Farm in 1984 and Brave New World, that those were in fact primers. Those were in fact like textbooks, like the manuals you get with a new appliance. Like, here's how you do it, right?
My high school senior daughter picked up Handmaid's Tale and started watching it on television at the same time. And I just thought, this was supposed to just be fiction for her.
Right, it's supposed to be ridiculous.
So
thanks to SCOTUS, it's about to happen.
Yeah, and I was asking you, like, right before we sort of took our little break, just the, just how art can respond to this, or is this something where you need to, obviously you need to move beyond art to respond to all this, but like, what is sort of the creative person's outlet to respond to all of this?
It's, we talked about this part 1. I feel that the attack on humanity is so egregious and so over the top that an artistic response is kind of toothless. It's kind of irrelevant. if you look at history, what you really realize is that any kind of democratic rule of law was an experiment, a relatively recent experiment and an anomaly in the history of man and the organization of mankind into social groups with leaders. And it's always been about willingness to give up your life to protect dignity and freedom, because the pigs are after you every day, every minute. And it never changes. It isn't like you sign a piece of paper and now it's written in stone forever that everything's cool. No. You fight, you win this freedom, and now you're going to fight and fight and fight again just to scratch your way back to square one.
When I grew up as sort of a child of the 70s, and sort of looking back on the 60s without having been, a conscious kid during the 60s, there was a sense of, there was all this terrible stuff that had happened, but we're moving beyond that. And there was also, so there was always this feeling of sort of optimism, like, that stuff is in the past. And, the KKK and all that's in the way past, and segregation, all of these things, we're sort of moving. And even more recently, there were sort of, when Obama got elected, there was these, we're in a post-racial society, before you had this whole backlash to it. And also growing up, there's sense that, music could change the world and art could change the world. And that somehow music was this unifying force that created empathy and bridges among cultures. And I'm wondering if that was true then.
It was a nice fairy tale. I believed it. I definitely. If you would have known Jerry in 1970, I believed it.
Do you think music could change the world then, and then it can't anymore? Or do you think that it's always been sort of the same?
I think I believed that fantasy back then. And then you find out you were silly. You're embarrassed that you would think that.
Do you think music made the world a better place for a while, and maybe now
it makes it a better place for a few people in any given moment? Yeah. We'd be worse off without it. Let's put it that way.
Right. But you had a period where there were a lot of people who believed all you needed is love, for instance, or give peace a chance. I mean, there were sort of these songs that were rallying cries. Now, did that actually create more love or more peace in the world? I mean, I guess you could debate that.
No, but, people do need, unfortunately, they do need false hope. They do need ideas that justify the pain we go through being mortals on this planet. This is a slave planet. It's a planet of warriors, of people that are enslaved. That's what this is. This is crude and low. Planet of the Apes was actually brilliant series.
Right. Have you now? I'm assuming that your worldview on all this has gotten darker over the years and decades, and maybe particularly in the last, 6 years or something like that. Or have you always sort of felt this way, and now it's kind of coming to fruition in a way you feared? Or
no, I didn't always feel this way. Like I said, I was, I probably could have been accused of being, although a thoughtful one, I was a hippie. The live and let live, saw the possibilities and the fantasies and the beauty of what could happen, and thought there were just some bad apples, but the barrel wasn't rotten. You get rid of some of the bad apples.
Right.
But after May 4th, that was all over that soon. After watching my friends get shot and killed by the National Guard, and seeing who controls the writing of history and how that was presented to the masses through the media, and you saw how it really worked. It was a simple red pill moment, to use the cliche of the Matrix. You were never the same again. You saw exactly how it really works, and how everything you'd been fed was just a bullshit, bourgeois, consumer fantasy fucking lie. America, the brand of freedom. America was not. They were involved in inexcusable, indefensible, imperialistic wars for compromised reasons. We were doing the same things we were accusing people of. We were gaslighting the world, no different than Russia was. At home, the most racist country on the planet. The crap that black people in America have to live with is just unconscionable. It doesn't even seem real.
But for a while, I bet you thought it was getting better, maybe? Or did you always?
Yeah, sure.
But now, where we are now, it's hard to sort of feel that
full on de-evolution, full on.
So are you writing songs right now?
I do, yeah. I do. I've written, the latest song I wrote that I stuck on the reissue of the Jihad Jerry and the Evildoers record, where there were added tracks, was I'm Gonna Pay You Back.
Right.
And I did a video with my good friend Davey Force to that. Davey is a CG artist that's been playing with artificial intelligence programs. So we took some look I'd been trying to do for like 5 years and couldn't do it. Because even as a director, I was limited to live action. I'm not an animation expert. He found a way to do it, which was take live action and turn it into something that turns it 1 degree away from reality into the Marvel comic book realm of like live action comics. And that's what you saw Jihad fight with his alter ego, Jerry from Devo.
And the song too, when I was listening to that album, and I knew that it's the sticker said, includes the new single, I'm Gonna Pay You Back. And in listening to it, I thought, well, this sounds like this is reflecting the last few years as opposed to,
right.
The rest of it, which was what, from 2006, 7, 2004.
Yeah, well, I wrote it in 2004. Didn't see the light of day till 2 years later.
Right. So anyway, but it was in that it was done originally back in the George W. years and now, but this sounded like, but I'm Gonna Pay You Back sounded like it was coming out of the Trump years.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So you've been writing more along those lines since then?
Oh yeah. And I'm going to use the same video technique as in I'm Gonna Pay You Back. I'm gonna make a new video. And I wrote a song called Sex is a Weapon, and a few others. Are
you trying to get a new Devo album going?
No, I've given up on that.
So there's no enthusiasm from the other side of your creative partnership? Correct. Oh, that's too bad. Something for Everybody is a terrific record. Like that was a really nice, there had a lot of energy to it. And, like if we were talking about, Don't Shoot, I'm a Man. I mean, that's,
I love that song. And I loved Fresh, and I loved What We Do. And one that's very unexpected, which is No Place Like Home. Right.
No, I really enjoy that album a lot. And, it sort of makes, it sounds like it's sort of the follow up to Oh No, It's Devo at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we couldn't help but be us, right? I hear like that. I hear what you're saying. And I also heard influences of freedom of choice all the way back to that.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Cause they're hooky songs. They've got electronic things going on, but it also has, a human pulse behind it.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes where the band will sort of come back and do their comeback album after a long time, and it'll be like, oh, they sound a little slower and less energetic, and I did not feel that way about that record at all. I thought that it was I thought it really sort of jumped out, and I was re-listening to it again, and I'm just like, yep, this is how I remember it. We were talking about Oh No, It's Devo and Roy Thomas Baker. It's a very good sounding record. At that point he was known for, among other things, but Queen and the Cars. I'm wondering if he sort of suggested sort of stacking some vocals with you guys, or whether it was like, no, this is not what we do.
Well, what we were hoping is that after that experience of New Traditionalists, we were hoping that he could capture the sonics of these songs in a way that popped on radio. Because he was so good at making these songs sound incredible on the radio, which is what you had to do then. And so I thought, well, what if we sounded as good as the Cars, but with our substance and our message? That's a good combo, right?
Right.
Like here's songs that are a lot more deep and a lot more substance, but they sound as earwormy as the Cars.
So were you happy with how it came out?
There's a lot of it I was happy with. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought so. I mean, again, that album was for me, and it's interesting because I actually at some point, sort of in the earlier days of CDs, there was like a CD that had freedom of choice and that together. Like it just kind of, I think maybe there was one where they had like, Duty Now and New Traditionals were bundled, but those two were bundled together, and it made sense because those two sound good together.
Yeah.
So I think I saw that tour at the Tower Theater in Philadelphia. I think I was a freshman at the time when that came out, and you guys were performing in front of a video screen.
Right.
That's my memory of it.
Right.
So were the feelings coming out of that album good as a band, or was it that was sort of when you felt like you were kind of fracturing a bit?
There were dark clouds on the horizon.
And what was the reason for that?
Who knows? I mean, there's so many reasons. It's just the ravages of time, also the cultural times we were in, the way radio and commercial tastemakers were oriented towards not receiving Devo, being resistant to Devo, and stuff going on within the band overall, this use of just sequencer lines and, programming as opposed to playing.
Right.
No, you remember Time Out for Fun.
Absolutely.
I mean, the preamble that I wrote there where the Spud talks to you, right? The Spud boy talks to you. Just think of what he's saying. He's talking about dark clouds in the crystal ball and, all the terrorism that was going on in a foreign land, and it was time for a little time out for fun because everything was so dark and dire.
Right.
It really was then.
Well, yeah, even then, and then you have Peekaboo where there's all this laughter, but it's so demonic. It's not like feel good laughter. It's like, oh my God, it's a horror movie laughter.
Well, we hated clowns. Clowns. We had a special hatred for clowns. We thought clowns were a horror movie. We thought they were creepy.
Yeah, you're not the only one. So Devo really anticipated so many of the sounds of the 80s on, your earlier records. And then when the 80s kind of caught up to Devo, then it was like, I don't know, something like Shout. There's, the sounds of it are more sort of the sounds of the 80s as opposed to anticipating the sounds of the 80s, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's the album that sounds a little more sort of synthetic and, in a way that I don't know, it doesn't reflect the energy of the previous ones, perhaps.
I did not like Shout. Yeah.
Where was the band at that point doing that? Like, so you got Shout, you got what, Total Devo and Smooth Middle Maps. Like, how do you view that period overall?
Well, Shout was the last Warner Brothers record, and Shout was with a real budget, but that's when Mark just fell in love with the Fairlight, and that's all he wanted to operate on. And I really didn't like what I was hearing and what he was wanting to do, and I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to move in a different direction. And he was just of an attitude like lump it or leave it. Like, here's what's happening. If you don't like it, stay home. As if I was some sideman in a band, not the guy that founded it, not the guy that wrote half the songs. So it was like, oh boy, this is fun. And I didn't like the energy. It just sounded sterile and not Devo.
Where did you want to take it?
Well, I said if we were going to use the Fairlight, I thought we should become Devo's Spaceman Caveman, meaning only use the Fairlight for some very, very unsettling, intermittent, hugely synthetic sounds that we're playing to that only come up compositionally, you know, every 16 beats or every 8 bars or whatever. And the rest is Devo going back to the cave, but with this high-tech, frightening outer space element of the spare light. That would have excited me.
Yeah. The mid-'80s just sonically were such a weird time. And I feel like they sort of, like a lot of groups, sort of most dated records are from like 84, 85.
They all sound like cocaine. You know, like you're on cocaine.
Like I was a big Elvis Costello and the Attractions fan, and Goodbye Cruel World came out in 84. And it also, like, you listen to that album now and that's the one that's so time-stamped. And there's a lot of the Yamaha DX7 on it. And it's just the drum sound on it. I've talked to a couple of people from XTC who, Terry Chambers, their drummer, was very much talking about like what a big influence Devo was on early XTC. And I hadn't made that connection, and then made total sense when I thought about it. Right. And he was out of the band by that point, but I think their album from 85, had all this kind of programmed drums on it too. And it just that was like sort of this period where the human element was getting away. And with Devo, it's just interesting because there was always that sense of like, it's the humans and the machines kind of working together to make everything work. And so when the machines start overtaking it, that's, maybe a problem.
That was a problem.
So what finally happened when you guys split? Was it just was it more of an artistic thing? Like, we've sort of had our run and we want to do other things? Or was there more of a, we're just sick of each other, we need a break?
Well, yeah, Mark only became interested in what he could do for scoring some kids' TV shows, and then that jumped into a feature. And he, that's a different discipline. It's apples and oranges from a group creating something that nobody even knows that they want to hear yet, and then suddenly they want to hear what they didn't even anticipate. Scoring is like a problem-solving thing. It's like me being hired to do TV commercials. I'm not the primary creative. I'm the secondary creative. They come to me with an idea, and they're trying to figure out a way to get it done and make it work. And they're looking to me to problem solve and do that because of my understanding of the medium and my directing skills. And, here's a storyboard, here's the way we can do it. Here's a shot list. It's the same thing with scoring. It's like they come and go, we want something that's like Danny Elfman's Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever. And then, because you have enough technical facility, you go, oh, something like this. So you're solving their problems. It didn't start with you. It wasn't your movie. You didn't go, I'm going to write a horror score here. You're being hired. Right. So
was Bernard Herrmann by Hitchcock, and you still, remember those scores.
Well, those are exceptions. That's when art comes back into it.
Right.
But that's not the Hollywood machine. That's not how it works. But,
right. So someone like Wes Anderson is working kind of outside that.
Right. And there you go. That's what people remember when Mark got to do something for Life Aquatic. They still remember that because there was some thoughtful aesthetic process going on there.
Is there any of that music that you sort of have just listened to and thought, oh, that's just a nice piece of music?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. I think we all remember exceptional pieces of music, don't we? It's like,
sure. Well, like what are examples of stuff that he's done sort of solo that you thought, oh, that would be, that's a nice piece of work.
Mark?
Yeah.
God, it's hard off the top of my head to name something specific, but it was actually for a kid's TV show. It wasn't one of his feature films. And I'm trying to remember what it was. It wasn't Rugrats. And it was interesting because it wasn't so busy and silly and cacophonous like, like doodle, doodle, doodle. It was more structured and minimal so that, you could digest it. It was nice. Trying to remember. Wish it would. I guess it's Alzheimer's not popping into my head here.
No, I have that all the time. I just I'll be like, what was that person's name again? I'm doing that. So it's, yeah. And you were directing videos also, and you worked for the Cars. You did the Touch and Go video for them, and you did Rush.
I started in 1980 directing for other bands. I did Touch and Go and Panorama for them.
Right.
And that led to some stuff for Rush.
Yeah, I saw that. Mystic Rhythms by Rush.
There you go. And then
Foo Fighters you did?
Yeah, I was hired by the English team, Godley and Cream, at Media Lab in London. I worked for them for 6 months, and I did Blancmange and Jane Siberry, and God, I can't remember some of these English groups I shot stuff for, but I was getting good by being able to work. And then I came back, and the 90s started happening right then. And yeah, I did Silverchair and the Foo Fighters and so many others. Names I can't even remember now. Most of these groups I did that were so highly touted, their deals lasted 2 years and then they disappeared.
You and Godley and Krim could have had a sort of spin-off 10cc Devo band or something.
Yeah. Oh, I like those two guys. They were great. And I was unfortunately present when their wives, who hated each other, broke them up. I watched the partnership break up.
Oh, that's too bad. I noticed that they hadn't been doing stuff for a while, and then I don't know. Krem recorded some stuff. I mean, Godley recorded some stuff with Graham Gouldman. So then that was his other half of 10cc. But they never really all came together.
No,
at least
what happened. It was once again the triumph of pettiness, stupidity, and tribalism.
Well, that's too bad. What was it? Yeah. Well, I'll ask them at some point. I'll get them on the podcast and say, why'd you guys break up?
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate it because I like those, early 10cc records and some of the Godley and Krem stuff too, because it's just very creative. And then they really sort of pushed everything forward with those videos. Mm-hmm. And, and your videos are a lot of fun too. And are the Cars the ones who put you onto Roy Thomas Baker when you were doing the Panorama stuff? Because that was right before Oh No, It's Devo.
That's right. Yeah. I was. I actually had a good relationship with Ben Orr, who's deceased now,
right?
And not a bad one with Rick. Although with Rick, you never knew where you stood. He was pretty inscrutable and removed. But I was hanging out with them in their studio on Newberry Street and going out socially with them. And that's how Roy Thomas Baker got into the mix.
In terms of looking at what was going on with Devo and you guys had broken up, did you have sort of thoughts about obviously you talked about the sort of how you wanted to use the Fairlight in the mid 80s. During this break of time between Smooth Noodle Maps and Something for Everybody, did you have other thoughts on, these would be sort of interesting directions for us to go in that we hadn't gone in?
Musically or just...
Yeah, musically.
Yeah.
Well, for instance, I'll throw the Jihad Jerry record. There are a few things happening on there, even though it's basically, a lot of it is you and the Devo guys, but there's a lot more sort of background vocals and kind of call and response sort of stuff, which I don't associate with Devo. And even the song Beehive, that's kind of like a blues song. And I don't think a Devo is going into blues. So I was wondering if
that was my roots. I was in a blues band that was pretty famous in Ohio called the Numbers Band, 1560-75, the Numbers Band. And I played with them at these clubs in Akron and Kent that were very popular at the time. So I was playing at JB's and the Cove and someplace in Akron I can't remember the name of. And the lead singer, Bob Kidney, gave me a true schooling in the blues. I mean, he had a collection that filled a whole wall in his house, a collection of vinyl from Imperial Records, VJ Records, Chess Records, all the best recordings from the 50s and 60s of, Willie Dixon, John Lee Hooker, all of them. And he'd play me all these deep cuts off of their records, and I got really sucked in for a while. I was Mr. Blues Man. Beehive was my nod to my blues roots.
Were there times when you came into Devo with, whether it was a blues song or something else, and there was a sense of, oh, that's a good song, but it's not Devo because that doesn't fit our identity?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, a sensitive acoustic ballad or something like that.
Yeah, it was too genre. It was too... We always had an agreement that if it sounded like something that already existed and was already on the radio, we weren't going to pursue it.
And what were you listening to mostly at the time as well? Like who were the bands that you sort of got excited to see or play with when all of this was going on?
Well, of course, in the beginning, it was very eclectic. I mean, besides actually seeing these people like John Lee Hooker live and Howlin' Wolf live, and I saw even Sunhouse live. I saw James Cotton live. I saw Paul Butterfield live. Then I was seeing, I saw Captain Beefheart live, and I saw Morton Subotnick put on a performance with his Moog synthesizers. And I saw Bob Marley. I saw Ravi Shankar. I mean, it was like anybody interesting and good, I saw them. I saw Jimi Hendrix twice. I saw, the Rolling Stones on their first tour of America. I saw Led Zeppelin on their first tour. I saw Roxy Music on their first tour. I saw David Bowie on the Diamond Dogs tour when he hit Cleveland, Ohio. This stuff was all influencing me, and I was listening to Terry Riley and Philip Glass.
When you're writing now, are you writing on a keyboard or a synth, or how do you do it?
I've written on a keyboard, but mostly on my bass. Mostly on my bass or an acoustic guitar.
It would have been interesting to hear Devo sort of go back and do sort of, I mean, again, you don't want everything to be looking back or whatever, but to almost do like this another guitar record, like, Are We Not Men or something.
That'd be great.
You say that like you would love to do that, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see the spirit being shared,
When I saw you on that tour and you were doing that album and Freedom of Choice, did you have a feeling like one night was more fun than the other? Like one album was more fun than the other to perform?
Since I love both of the albums we were doing, it was equal. Even though, in fact, the fact that it was so different and we were switching back and forth made me like each one more than having to just do one thing every night.
Well, it was very cool to be able to like come consecutive nights and see both albums and both incarnations, because they are different and they're both, fantastic records, but at the same time, there's a different sort of sound and energy to each one.
And we were trying to channel the aesthetic and energy that we felt then when we did the rap, and it was possible to do that because it was focused. It's like, here's what you're doing. You're doing 1978. So by the end of that night, you're there. You've gone back. It's Back to the Future. Right.
So your brother, very sadly, is no longer with us.
I know.
You're still doing Devo shows. It must be very different to be on stage with him not there at this point, and sort of how do you deal with that?
Well, I miss him so much. I never took his phone number out of my phone. I can't do it. He's been dead 8 years now, and his phone number's in my phone.
Yeah.
And I worked with him almost daily. And so when I'm on stage and we're playing those songs, I pretend he's there.
What are the things that he added musically to the band that your casual listener would not have realized?
Maybe how much work it takes to sound simple and stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you guys just, there was such an interlocking of all these different parts, but it never sounded overly complicated. Like,
yeah,
like
exactly.
you managed to sort of get these musical ideas across, even though, when you watch the videos and, see performance footage, you see that everyone's doing something very different, but it all kind of works together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I like.
What do you think of where we are culturally now, by the way? Are there songs that, are there like older songs that it's harder to pull out now? Or, do you get cultural flack for anything that you've played in the past because they're like, well, you could do that in 78, but
Right.
Now it's not so great.
Right. Like the Rolling Stones' Brown Sugar, right?
Right. Well, we're like, what one of my kids, when they heard the song Mongoloid, they're like, oh, that's not a good term. And I'm just like, well, this is, if you listen to the song, it's not an offensive song, but the term takes some people back. And I'm wondering, can you still perform that song and have everyone be fine with it?
Yeah, well, you're right. In politically correct culture where there's as much censorship from the left as there is from the right, Mongoloid is just automatically a red flag because you got the name, right? I'd have to sing Down syndrome, he had Down syndrome, but we weren't making fun of the Mongoloid. We were making fun of the guy who made fun of the Mongoloid. We were saying he's the Mongoloid. He's the Mongoloid he's making fun of. But of course, that irony is lost on a modern audience. They don't understand satire. They don't understand irony. They just accept everything like point blank, like zeros and ones information, and they're told what to think. They're told this is okay, this isn't.
Well, it's hard to imagine, like someone like Randy Newman, like the career that he had, specifically the stuff he put out in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like it would be subject to quote unquote controversy if he did it now, because
he'd be canceled.
Yeah. I hope not, but
he would be.
Yeah. Now he managed to mix the movie work and still put out the good records too.
Yeah.
What's the most recent album or song that you've heard that you've loved?
Oh, it's a few years old now, but when Donald Glover, under the name of Childish Gambino, did "This Is America," the song.
Oh yeah.
I just was blown away, and I was jealous. I thought that has the substance and power and directness of early Devo. It's some message that we should be talking about. He did it, and I was moved by it.
What did you think of that video?
I was disturbed by it in a good way.
Yeah. What kind of music do you listen to these days? Do you listen to like a lot of hip hop, or do you
I try to listen to everything. I just listened to the new Kendrick Lamar single. I thought that was really good. I like the changes it went through. He's very creative and he's very smart.
Right.
Most of it, it's, you pick a genre and most of the genre is stupid. People go, that hip hop sounds all alike. Well, so does heavy metal. It's like bad is bad, but good is good. And there are great songs here and there that pop out in a number of genres. And the other song that blew me away was the late Bob Dylan. Maybe it's a pinhead kind of Alzheimer's genius. I don't know what you'd call it, but I think it's 11 minutes long, and it's called A Murder Most Foul.
Murder Most Foul. Yeah, I think it's like 15 or something like that.
Oh my God.
Might be longer than that. I think it might be longer than that. It's an amazing song.
Masterpiece. It's a pinhead masterpiece. Even though he's sounding like a guy that's half dead and he's mumbling, his devastating summation of the 20th century is right on the money.
I'm also always happy when someone who's been around that long reminds us that he's still relevant, and that, you can be making amazing music when you're in your late 70s or even 80. And he's touring.
Yeah, absolutely. He just showed the kids, fuck you. Here, write something heavier than this, pal. It was amazing.
McDonald's, I think it just settled over their like unauthorized use of the energy domes.
Yeah.
Did those become like collector's items? Can you find, do you have like a, alternate sort of?
I don't even have one. We had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Those people are brutal. They basically threatened us, if you can imagine that. They said, if you keep this up, here's what we're going to do to you, as if we did something wrong, even though they were totally in the wrong. And then they made us sign a non-disclosure agreement. So I am not allowed to even talk about what the settlement was. Honest to God, to this day, it's in perpetuity.
Yeah, I think that was the case when I talked to you back in 2009 or whatever. So I was hoping maybe. But I guess those things just hold forever. But they're gone though. They quit doing their little rip-off energy zones. So, all right. Well, what's the next thing that we can expect from Devo?
Gee, I don't know. I would like to say there is something very much. I'm working on, for years we've had this story that we wanted to turn into a graphic novel and a musical. And now we have people that are ready to make it happen. And it's just a matter of, overcoming marks and transience. There's also a company that does NFTs. And there was this idea from Devo about doing the musical equivalent of what the CryptoPunks did when they did that series of portraits where they were using visual AI programs so that there's no two 8-bit portraits that are the same. Like when you buy one of those, you're actually getting something of value because the next guy's is different.
Right.
That's never really happened in music. And we think we've figured out a way with these programmers to do that in music so that there would be no mass release of this new Devo song because there wouldn't be a song. It would be written in a series of 2-bar programs where we know that no matter what the AI technology does to it to progressively mutate it, that they can't ruin it. That any 2 parts rearranged will sound good together. Any length will sound good together. And any rearrangement of the lyrics, it's like William Burroughs cut-ups, right? It will still be poetic, even if it's not a linear narrative. So you would get your version of the Devo song would be different than the next guy's. And there would only be 1,000 versions available.
So would this have lyrics on it, or is it just an instrumental piece?
No, it'd be lyrics on it. And each of us would sing. But you don't know who's going to be singing what on any given version. Huh.
So it would just be kind of this jumble of different parts that would sound good together.
But not jumble in the sense of conceptually it would be worked out. So it's coherent jumble because it would be based on bars of music.
How do you write a song like that?
By breaking it down. It's so Devo, right? By breaking it down into small pieces and realizing that any piece can be connected with any piece and making sure that works.
So you've already written this, or this has already been recorded, or you're trying to get it going?
No, this was the idea, and I keep working on it. I've written charts, I've written lyrics, I've been waiting to record pieces, and I keep saying to, the other guys in the band, let's get together and make this real. And we'll see. We'll see.
It sounds really interesting. So I'd love to hear it. So, well, great. Well, thank you. And I'm sorry I missed your show last night, and I hope there will be at least another. You have any others scheduled, or is that just kind of it for now?
Unfortunately, yeah, that's kind of it right now.
Well, come on over to Chicago. Do a last one in Chicago. We're the Midwest, Heartland, and all that stuff. So you owe us one. That would be great.
I love Chicago, yeah.
So, all right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate chatting with you. Thanks also just for all of the awesome music you've given us over the years. It's really made a difference in my life and a lot of other people's.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
That's all for episode 36 of Caropop. Thanks again to Gerald Casale for spending so much time discussing Devo, his own work, and the state of our devolved world. Follow him on Twitter at GVC3 Casale, Casale. And go to his website, geraldvcasale.com, to order Jihad Jerry albums, singles, shirts, and other merch. Thanks as always to web designer Marty Rosenbaum and to Lou Carlozzo, who recorded the Devo-inspired Caropop theme. Caropop is produced by Chris Swake, who's always on the smart patrol and does his work with a ton of love. I'm Mark Caro. Please follow me on Twitter at Mark Caro, at MarkCaro, and visit the Caropop website, caropop.com, for posts about music, movies, and food, and also this Caropop podcast. Please share, subscribe, and tune in again next week. Thanks.